Hello, welcome to Workplace Wake Up. I'm Jen Shaw. Every week, I spend about 15 minutes covering key legal developments, introducing you to interesting guests, and providing some entertainment to start your workday. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Today, we're going to talk about a tough subject. When is it time to let go of an employee? When is enough enough? When do you need to let go? And I'll tell you what, this is really easy when you're not that nuts about the employee, okay? So when you have someone who has a bad attitude and they're not getting the work done and they're causing a lot of strife in the workplace and they're causing a lot of drama and they're driving you crazy, you're just waiting for that day, right? You're writing up the discipline and you're thinking about how many more of these do I need to do? And okay, I'm trying to train the person, but it's not working. And of course, as your lawyer, we will always tell you, you treat these people like they're your favorite employees. You have to be fair. You have to be consistent. If you've got a policy, you have to apply it fairly, right? You have to apply it consistently. All of that is true, all right? But we're human beings and we have feelings, we have emotions, we have perspectives. So you're going to have to work harder to do that in some cases. There are going to be situations when you're thinking, how much longer? Like, when can I get rid of this person? Now, obviously, there are some operational or institutional issues that come to play here. If you have an employee who works for a public entity, a public agency, right? A state department or a city or a county, if they've passed their probationary period, they may be entitled to due process before their job is taken away. So in those workplaces, and also in workplaces that have unions, all right, they are going to be subject to much more requirements for being able to terminate someone. In your typical private sector work environment where there's an at-will employment policy that says, hey, listen, you can quit anytime you want. I can fire you anytime I want. I can change the terms and conditions of your employment as long as I only do so prospectively. That's how it works. I can fire you for wearing a blue shirt, right? If I decide that I don't like blue shirts. Dumb idea. I might lose a really good employee, but I can do it. So the first thing you have to recognize is, okay, what universe am I in? Am I in the private sector at-will universe where, sure, I still need to have a reason and I better be able to back up my reason with documentation if I'm challenged, right? But I've got more flexibility than I do in a public sector work environment. So once you figure that out, when is enough enough? All right. This has come up a lot with our clients recently because for many of us, we don't like confrontation. I hate confrontation. I am a lawyer. I litigated cases. I went to trial. And in 2017, I said, I don't want to do litigation anymore. I'm tired of having opposing counsel yelling and being mean and, ascribing motives to me and my client that aren't there. And I just was done. After 20 years, I couldn't do it anymore. And I don't like the conflict. I don't like the confrontation. I don't like it in my personal life. I don't like it in my work life. It's really hard for me to tell someone they're having an issue at work. I don't want to do it. I delay doing it. I sometimes say it in such a nice way that they don't even know I'm criticizing them. They don't even know I'm trying to get them to improve because I haven't done it in a direct enough manner. So there are a lot of issues here that you've got to know about yourself. How do you communicate? How are you as a leader? And this is everybody in HR, every manager and supervisor, and even coworkers, because a lot of times, even if we're not somebody's manager or supervisor, we still may need to give them some feedback about what's going on. But when is enough enough? And this is the thing that I think is really helpful to employers when you're making this decision. You have to step back and ask yourself, have I done everything I could to help this person? Okay? Have I given them the training? Have I given them clear, direct feedback of what I really need to be seeing? Have I given them a chance, right? So the other day I was talking to a client who said, Jen, I just delivered that performance improvement plan that you helped me write. I just delivered it on Friday. Today, by the way, was Tuesday. And I'm not seeing improvement. Okay, you delivered it on Friday afternoon. There was Monday, and now you're calling me on Tuesday. That is not enough time, right? Now, I don't want you to make the mistake of saying in the performance improvement plan, I'm going to check back in 30 days, right? Because what if there's a huge problem on day 8? Now you've basically said you're guaranteed to work here for another 30 days. So what I would prefer you say is I need to see immediate and sustained improvement. Immediate and sustained improvement. Okay. And then you've got to ask yourself, all right, am I seeing improvement? By the way, this takes work. You're going to be checking in on the employee. You're going to be seeing if their work performance has improved. You're going to be looking at, okay, how much is it reasonable to expect this person to have improved in this period of time? A lot of what makes this process better is practice. So the more you do this, the more you give feedback, the more you really are able to sit down and take the time and communicate your expectations, you're going to know, gosh, we've talked about this 3 times and it's not improving. Like the person is making the same mistake over and over again. One of the things that I want you to think about when you're making this decision is attitude. Attitude goes a long way. So let me give you an example. If the feedback you're giving to the employee is, hey, you're short, you're curt, you're not collaborative, you're not kind to your coworkers, you need to turn that around, okay? They can stop doing that right now, right? They can choose that they're not going to behave that way anymore. So if I have that conversation with you on Friday and Tuesday you have another meltdown with a coworker, that might be it for me. Because I've told you, we're done. You can't do that anymore. And now you do it. It's a behavior issue. That is different than I need you to improve your skills in Excel, right? Well, now I'm going to send you to a class. You've got to have practice. It's going to take you some time to learn these new skills. So it's not reasonable for me to expect you to have improved between Friday and Tuesday, okay? But attitude, behavior is a different issue. We all choose to engage in the behavior that we are engaging in right now. I know there are exceptions. There always are. I had a case one time where someone had Tourette syndrome. He involuntarily sort of lashed out at people at work, both verbally and physically, and he really couldn't control it. I get that. But we didn't let that person stay in the workplace. We couldn't. Yes, he had a disability. It was horrible. It wasn't his fault. He didn't mean to do it. But he's literally hitting people and saying the most vile things to them at work. That was creating a terrible work environment for them. We couldn't allow that to continue. So it's one of those things where it wasn't his fault. He didn't do it on purpose, but he still couldn't be in the workplace. So behavior conduct is going to get somebody terminated more quickly than an actual performance issue relating to a task or relating to something that they're supposed to be able to do. Now, one of the things that makes this hard is when you actually like the person. Okay, so I've talked to you about when you can't stand this person and you're counting down the days and you have to constantly remind yourself to be fair and be consistent. It's a different situation when you love the person, right? You think they're terrific. As a human being, they're amazing. You're proud of their growth. You're proud of what they've done in the organization, but they're just not getting it done. That is really hard because you just don't want to give up on them. And one of the things that happens in this situation is we wait too long and we wait until this person has really created an issue in the organization. Not by being mean, right? They're a nice, good person. We all like them, but they're not getting the job done. And that means there's stress for other people. Other people are having to pick up the slack. We're having to try to understand what is happening and sort of work around that person because they haven't been able to improve and it doesn't look like they're going to be able to improve, but we're having a really hard time saying goodbye. Those are the tough ones. And that is when you've got to sit down and you've got to ask yourself, listen, what is the negative impact on the organization? What is happening here? Have I allowed this to go on for too long? Does it really feel like it's probably not going to change? This would be the case if you hired me as an engineer and you told me all day long I need to do calculus. I would be nice, I would be kind, I would help people, but I am never going to be able to do the calculus. It was the just absolute torture of my high school career and my college career. I never understood how you rotated a cone around some sort of axis and you forget it. I just couldn't do it. So you could keep me on forever and I'd never, ever be able to do that job. So one of the things we do, of course, is we try to get the right person in the job in the first place, right? We ask questions. One of the things I noticed when I was interviewing a lawyer the other day is I've stopped asking the questions that I really need to know the answer to. I've sort of devolved into just having a chit chat with the person. I wasn't asking, why did you go to law school? What did you like about law school? What did you like about your first job? What do you like about your current job? What do you not like about that? These are all important questions to get people's philosophy and understanding and approach. But I've sort of stopped doing that. I've done so many interviews in my career that now I'm just chit-chatting. That's not effective. So for me to have the right person in the job, I've got to ask the right questions. But sometimes you ask all the right questions, you do all the right things, you provide the right training, you give good coaching, you're patient, you want to help, you're doing everything you can, and the person just doesn't get it. This is when you need to sit down and you need to say, I don't think this is the best place for you. And I've had to do this in my career a few times, more than a few times, unfortunately, and I've helped find another position. So I would say one of our lawyers was a great lawyer, but just couldn't do what we needed to get done. And I said, okay, there's this other job I heard about. I think you'd be a perfect fit. Let me see if I can help. They got the job. They're still there 15 years later. It was a great fit. You're going to try to do what you can to help, and you're going to try to help everybody. But look, we're human beings, and among all of us, let's be honest. You may work harder for an employee who has been kind and nice and you have a good relationship with them. That's just human nature. You can't make those decisions based on a protected characteristic. Of course, you can't treat someone better because of their sex or their race or their national origin or their political beliefs. But if they've just been a darn good employee who can't get it done, you can help them. Try helping them. What you can't do is leave them in the position for 3 reasons. Number 1, there will come a time when you are done. And if you have let them keep being mediocre for month after month, year after year, the question's going to be, why now? What happened now that changed everything? Why are you terminating this person now? It doesn't make sense. There must be something nefarious going on here. Okay? Second reason is you could lose other good employees because they're looking at you saying, what the heck is going on? I'm busting my chops to make up for what Matilda isn't doing. And Jen's just letting it continue. Like, what is going on here? I can't keep doing this. I can't do 2 people's jobs. I'm going to have to go somewhere else. This is driving me crazy. Okay. The third reason is you're wasting your time. Your time is too precious. I don't care if you're an owner or a supervisor or a non-supervisory employee or what. It doesn't matter. Your time is precious. You have a lot of work yourself. You have a lot of things you're supposed to be doing yourself. And when you're spending time on what is essentially a lost cause, that is inefficient. That is wasting your organization's time and resources. And whether you're in HR or employee relations or you're the president of the joint, you got to figure that out. And you've got to take the time to take a step back and say, okay, you know what? The time is up. We're done. Let's figure out how to transition this person. By the way, can you let the person resign in lieu of termination? Of course. Does that negatively affect their unemployment insurance benefits? No, because they're going to write that they resigned in lieu of termination. So don't worry about that. And it sure makes it easier for them to get another job if they don't have to say that they were terminated. So is it okay to let someone resign in lieu of termination? Of course. Help them as much as you can. But at a certain point, you've got to let go. At a certain point, you need to get the right person in that job. And sometimes you can't wait for the right person to come along. Sometimes it's just time to let go. We're at our wits' end. We're done. We don't want to be, but we're not seeing a change, and we've got to do something. And sometimes you can't wait to get somebody else in, but the irony is every time I've had to do it, the right person has come along. So once you sort of open up the universe and you say, okay, this person is going to need to move on, it's amazing. Somebody good comes up. So I know this is hard. I know, especially if you're like me and you don't like confrontation and you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings and you want to be seen as a nice person. I get it, but you got to do what you got to do. Okay. So when it's time to let go, do it kindly, do it professionally, and get it done. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm so glad you were here with us today. Go make it an awesome day, and I'll see you next time. Workplace Wake Up, including our guests and hosts, do not provide legal advice in this podcast. Do not act upon any of the information discussed in this podcast without first consulting a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to spread the word, please share it with others. Post about it on social media and/or rate and review it. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, and email us at info@shawlawgroup.com.